I'll shut up.
Nah, I'm just gonna pause it here.
This morning, we enjoyed watching it. Given the opportunity to read it. So relevant. To what's going on today. You know, what's going on today.
Just one participant, Lindsay.
Okay. All righty. The chair will call the meeting to order. Item number one is to approve the minutes of June 20th and 27th. They're in draft form because we've had some staff out on vacation. They're available in draft form if anybody would like them. The chair's going to withdraw that at this point. No objection. All right, we're going to move on to item 3 of our agenda to discuss the cooperative extension memorandum of understanding. Extension. By my memory certainly correct, we have this would be the third time we've had a 6-year agreement. I think we've had 2.
Yeah, it was before my time, but
Well, it wasn't before
we've been doing memorandums since the mid-50s, but we've been around here, of course, since 1915. So would you like me to?
Yeah, sure. I'll just
So the reason why I'm here twofold. One, I'm the new interim director of cooperative extension. Ken LaValle served in that role for almost 10 years. And recently he stepped aside to lead UNH online. UNH was doing many different online things beforehand, and they decided to pull it all together and under Ken's leadership to kind of build up that program. So I've been with Extension for 23 years now in many different roles. I'm from Strafford County originally, but my first post for Extension was in Belknap for 8 years, followed by Merrimack. I did agriculture education in those 2 different counties. And then I led the agriculture team for 4 years. And then I was Ken's right-hand person for 8 years as associate director. So I was appointed into this interim position for 1.5 years. And next year, my intention is to apply for the job when it becomes a search, open search. So that's one thing I wanted to see me in person and know what my role is now. And then the second thing is a state RSA requires us to ask each New Hampshire county to recommit to us once every 6 years. So this memorandum of understanding, where it's not a legally binding agreement, what it is it's just almost like a handshake, an agreement that we will continue to fund staff and their travel and necessary supplies, things going here in Strafford County, and we're asking you to commit to do the same. Of course, every year we come to you with a formal request for a budget. So that's really where the money hits the road. But that is the reason why I'm here, is to point out we just made a couple of changes to the MOU this time around. It doesn't change the spirit of the document, but what it does is just reflect the reality of how we actually spend our funds. So in the previous and all previous MOUs, page 2, section 1F described how the funds would be expended. And what actually happens is our staff, led by our office administrator, and that's Caitlin Wallach. Strafford. She's responsible basically for making sure the funds are expended as they're intended, and our county advisory council oversees that procedure. Previously, it stated that the citizen volunteers expended the funds. It really wasn't whatever happened, to be honest with you. And then the only other change is on page 3, section 3B, it states the county office administrator, in consultation with the advisory council, oversees the expenditure of the funds instead of the opposite. So it's basically in 2 sections, and we wanted to have our MOU be accurate about how we actually
operate.
Yeah. And this is all with the courtesy of providing you information anytime you need it. Now, of course, Commissioner Watson does attend our county advisory council meetings on a regular basis, so we do have a commissioner's eye on
Right.
our work on an ongoing basis. Those are the points I wanted to make, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I had an opportunity to review the MOU and when I saw those changes, I said, okay, this is probably the way they're operating, basically. And I asked Commissioner Watson, he said, that was good. So, well, I have no objection with memorandum of understanding. Rob, do you have anything you want to add? Since you're our representative on.
No, there's no real change. I think just a commitment to each other for the next 6 months. In the next 6 years, in spirit, it's not, we're not financially obligated, but it would be our every intention to continue to work with them like that.
Okay. You guys all good? You good with the thing? Yeah. I got a motion to, we've entered into the 6-year agreement.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Would you be comfortable signing 2 copies?
Yeah.
So that when we have all signatures, I can return a signed copy.
Absolutely, as long as we can get a affirmative vote.
Oh, yes, excuse me for interrupting.
That's all right.
That's a minor detail.
Those are payment in this thing,
Aye.
those opposed, vote unanimous.
So the last time we signed this, it was at the county convention.
Right.
They had just installed a new president at UNH, Jim Dean, and he's now retiring.
Mhm.
And they've got a new one coming in, but not in time to do a signing ceremony, but
No, but you will be receiving an invitation very soon. We just got a date from our new president, Elizabeth Chilton. She will sign on September 6th at the New Hampshire Association of Counties meeting
Oh,
meeting
okay.
at Primex in Concord.
Right, okay.
So it would be nice to have your photos taken there with her.
All right.
so it's you, something.
The chair.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You want today's date on
That's fine. Yes, please.
there? 11, right?
Yes.
Tori could sign, I guess.
Yeah, she's
Yep.
chairman of
Yeah.
She
the
is.
council, right?
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
All righty. Well, thanks for all coming in.
Certainly. Good to see
Good to see you. Well, while we're talking about water extension, let's talk about the trees out front. There it is.
That's me.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's see if I can figure this out.
There you go.
All right, that works. Great. All right, good morning, everyone. On the subject of cooperative extension, my name is Lindsay Watkins. I am the cooperative extension field specialist in forest resources for Strafford County as well as Belknap County, also known as your county forester. So a little while ago, Janet had asked me to take a look at some of the trees around the courthouse. So I've been doing that and I'm kind of working on some updates for you about them. So I will try to keep this brief. I love talking about trees, so doing the best I can, but I do want to show some photos just so you all get a sense of what's going on, and it's a complex picture. So hopefully I don't need to convince too many of us why we should love trees, particularly here in sort of a more developed setting. They're great for a lot of reasons. Obviously, they're responsible for the air we breathe. They help with temperature moderation. I was actually out here yesterday kind of looking at some of the trees, and even just being close to a tree in that heat, it was a little bit cooler and nicer. So Stormwater management, really important. They're also a source of wildlife habitat. I saw bluebirds flying around out there yesterday, a couple other bird species and lots of bugs, and they're great for our mental health. There's all sorts of research that shows even just spending time sitting and looking at trees can reduce levels of stress hormones and make us feel better. So particularly in a space like this, which courthouse is probably a source of stress for many of the folks that work here and come here, having trees around can be a really nice benefit for all of us. So there's a pretty long history of extensions involvement in the trees around the courthouse. Initially, I didn't know anything about this, and then I started digging into it, and Janet had sent me some reports that one of my predecessors, Don Black, who apparently I have very big shoes to fill. He was about 3 feet taller than me, and his shoes were twice as large. So literally very big shoes. He planted a lot of the trees around the courthouse with community groups, youth from 4-H, students from UNH, and over the course of his tenure with Extension, which was from 1970 to 2008, he was around for a long time. He also did a great job of keeping track of those. I have a whole stack of newspaper clippings about tree planting at the courthouse. There's also several trees that were planted in honor and in memory of county and state officials. So some of them are still here, some of them are not. I've done my best in the inventory that I worked on to update which tree is which, and we talk about how to deal with those things, because sometimes when you have to remove a memorial tree, that can be a source of stress. So other trees were planted by county jail inmates. There's a few that were planted by Extension tree stewards who are volunteers that worked with Don and other Extension folks. A lot of trees were planted under the CETA program, which predates me. I looked it up. It was one of the job support programs that was around in the 70s through the early 80s. So the county had a land manager under that program, and she was responsible for getting a lot of these trees here, and some of them got moved from elsewhere. There's trees here that came from the Urban Forestry Center in Portsmouth. There's trees that Don planted with youth groups that he plucked out of the ground from around the edges of the field and transplanted over here. There's a tree that came from the Morton Arboretum in Illinois. And then there's a bunch of trees that came from a former commissioner's personal plantation. George Young, I believe, had a plantation, and a lot of the trees came from there. So they got here in a lot of different ways. And then the maintenance staff also planted a bunch of trees. So like I said, Don we have a really good history of all of this from the 80s all the way through the 90s and the early 2000s of tree planting. Now it's 20 years later. So enter me, I've been with Extension since September. So I'm coming into this pretty much right now. And we have some trees that are out there and they're looking pretty rough. Not all of them, not every single tree. There's some that are very healthy, but we have, right when you drive in, there's a couple sugar maples on the right that have cones because they're in danger of falling into the parking lot. So why is that happening? There's not really one single cause. So I can't pinpoint like, oh, this happened and this is affecting your trees and this is what you need to do about it. The bad news is there's a lot of reasons that trees are stressed both here and elsewhere around us. So we want to think a little bit about the difference between landscape trees and forest trees. So in a forest, we tend maybe not to think about it unless you're someone like me, and I think about it all the time. But in a forest, if it's left alone, you're going to have trees grow, you're going to have trees die, they're going to fall over, they're going to provide habitat for critters. And that's all fine and good as long as, nobody's standing under them. When the tree falls in the forest, right? It's great. It's good. When a tree falls in a landscape setting, it's maybe less good, particularly if it falls on somebody's car or on a person or, a building and causes property damage. So we have all these different stress factors that we need to consider in the landscape setting. Soil is one of the biggest ones. Soils in developed areas tend to have been excavated and moved around. There's a lot of compaction that happens, even just from people walking around out there, but also vehicles, driving, mowers, things like that. That really affects a tree's ability to grow. Trees' roots take up, when we think about a tree's root system, we always talk about the critical root zone, which is about 1 foot to 2 feet for every inch of diameter of that tree. So if you look at how big a tree is around, and then think about needing 1 to 2 feet of space for the roots. And then you go out and you look at trees and they're planted in these thin strips of grass in between parking areas. So we have limited root space, and the pavement on top of that is causing additional soil compaction. Drought stress, this is obviously a problem for trees everywhere in forests and elsewhere, but when you have limited soil and you have additional sources of heat, like sun hitting pavement, causing things to evaporate quickly, drought stress in a developed landscape can be compounded. That also comes into play with weather extremes. So like I said, hot day, sun's beating down on pavement, your trees are growing out in the open. Very few of our trees here have any shade from their neighbors. Generally, that's great. Trees like light, they want it to grow, but they can also get sun scorched. They can lose too much moisture that way. In the winter, the temperature swings can be more extreme, so you get freeze-thaw cycles that can cause stress and damage to trees. Lawn chemicals and road salt are another big source of stress. So parking lots get plowed and salted, obviously very important for keeping people safe, but then when that water runs off into your trees, it's going into the root system and affecting the soil and soil nutrients and the tree itself. Competition, grass and other plants. We probably don't think about it very much, but grass takes up a whole lot of water. So that can further compound some of these other stresses. And then in some cases, particularly on this line of trees over here, we've got all sorts of other stuff growing up. We have a nice little invasive species demonstration garden going on the side over there around the drainage. And then last is mechanical injury and vandalism. So I noticed many trees on the courthouse property that have some damage at the base, most likely from a mower, string trimmer, or another piece of equipment hitting them. And anytime you get that mechanical injury to your tree, that's opening up a wound that allows fungus and bugs and things like that to get in there. So bugs and fungus, pests and pathogens. So again, affect trees everywhere, forests, urban environments, but that is also a factor here. So, and then few trees, improper planting, poor management, neglect. It's great to plant trees with groups of kids. It can be very hard to do that in a way that the tree ends up in the ground exactly the way you want it. A lot of trees get planted too deeply. The tree here is planted too deep. We can't see any flare at the root. Basically, the roots got buried and suffocated. That's why that tree is dying. So like I said, it's not just one cause, it's usually many. So there's predisposing factors like the environment, the tree's genetics. Some of these trees might not be the right trees for this site, genetically or otherwise. Soil compaction, fertility. So we talk about the decline spiral. So most of the time people call me up and they're like, why is my tree dying? And I'm like, well, we have to start with the predisposing factors, look at the environment, and we can work our way all the way around to, then we get to a stress factor like a drought, excessive road salt, a major frost event or an ice storm. And we can follow that all the way around. Once the tree's stressed, it's more susceptible to other things like I just realized you can't see my little pointer, that's sad. Fungi and insects and root rots and other things that are going to kill our trees. So I went out and I looked at all of the trees that are on the courthouse property, and I looked for a bunch of different things to assess their overall health. And I'm just going to run through a quick list so that you all know kind of what I'm working from here when I'm looking at a tree and deciding whether it's healthy. So tree architecture is a big one. When a tree grows in the forest, it grows straight up, generally. Not always, it's growing towards light. So when you have a tree that's planted in an open environment like this and it has plenty of light, it can grow out. That can be really good for a tree. It can make it sturdy. gives you a nice broad canopy, gives us a lot of shade. It's like the ideal tree. However, the ideal tree in most cases doesn't happen without some pruning and maintenance. And without that pruning and maintenance, you end up with a situation like this where you have a lot of branches and they start to cross each other, rub against each other. Anytime that happens, you have a situation where you're opening up pathway for a wound and fungus and bugs and things to get in there and cause damage to the tree. So a couple examples from out here. So we have several multi-stemmed trees, which unless it is a species that is known for growing as a multi-stemmed specimen, usually is not ideal for tree architecture. It can create some weak points at the base where the tree might split. That can lead to things like cracks. One of the red maples over on that side of the parking lot. If you look at that crack where the two stems come together, it's probably one tree, two branches, but as they grew, they were taking up more and more space. They're pressing on each other. It starts to form a crack, and you can even see inside that crack, there's some dead wood in there. So that's a point on that tree that's going to be more prone to failure in the future. So poor architecture can lead to some cracks. We also have wounds and cankers. So again, a lot of the wounds I saw were likely mower damage or trimmer damage from maintenance around those trees. So this ash tree on the left, there's a lot of other things going on with that, but for now, you can just look at the roots. Definitely some damage there. It's in a spot where it could have even been backed into from the parking lot. And then the birch out front, I'm not sure what caused that. Maybe a snowplow, something else, but something higher up. More, and there's also a wound at the base too. So then I'm looking for decay. So there's obvious signs of decay, like fungal fruiting bodies, mushrooms, things like that. Those might not be present year round. So you may not see them, but what you may see is soft, squishy wood or hard, crumbly wood. And those are going to form based on the different types of fungal infection that a tree might get. So some fun things going on those sugar maples over there from a pathology standpoint. So there's an ash that's maybe right behind us right now, has some mushrooms growing out of an old pruning wound on the left. And then some mushrooms growing on a dead branch on one of the hickories. And with all of these things, just because a tree has one of these so-called defects, doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, this tree's got to go. And we'll talk about that. So the tree on the right, one of the hickories, that's a lower branch. It's probably shaded out. The branch is going to die off. That's completely natural. In a setting like this, would be something we would probably want to prune so that it doesn't fall off. We get it off there before it falls off on its own. Root problems, big one. Urban settings, and this is considered urban by tree standards. Root problems are probably the #1 cause of trees being stressed and suffering. So it's that soil compaction, it's being planted too deep. When you plant a tree, you want to be able to see that flare at the base of the roots. It's really important to the overall architecture and stability of the tree. Also to keep the roots close to the surface for air exchange. The roots need to do that too. This tree is a classic example of one that's been planted too deep. We don't really see any trunk flare there at the base. We can even see what is probably some root tissue that's starting to grow around it. The roots, when the tree is planted too deeply, are going to try to reach the surface of the soil. They're typically going to try to do that by the path of least resistance, which is often where the soil's been disturbed in that planting hole. And so they might encircle the base of the tree, and underneath the ground where we can't see it, that tree is basically getting strangled. So some more indications of root problems. So I showed you the base of this mountain ash earlier, but that is what happens. Root problems are also often going to become apparent from the top of the tree down. So when you start seeing dieback from the top of a tree, the first thing I'm thinking about is what's going on in the root system, because that tells me that something is preventing nutrients and water flow up and down that tree. Tree on the left, there's just some examples of some roots at the surface that look like they're starting to come around. So dead tops, dead branches, broken branches. So again, every tree, almost every tree, I don't know of a species that's not going to shed dead branches from time to time. trees prune themselves naturally if they're not being pruned by people. And that's great in the forest where it doesn't matter if a branch falls every now and then. It's not as great when you have trees over parked cars and buildings and people. So again, looking at different causes, dead branches in the lower part of the canopy, not a big deal. Dead branches in the upper part of the canopy, indicative of maybe some other sources of stress. So, dead and discolored and damaged foliage, tons of reasons for this. I've spent so much time just looking at leaves under a little magnifying glass this year. I don't know what's going on with this oak. I think there's several things. It looks like some anthracnose. It looks like some mites. It looks like some galls. Some of this may be destructive to the tree. Some of it may not be. Most healthy trees can withstand some level of defoliation and damage and recover just fine. Where it becomes a problem is when that stress is compounded by a whole bunch of other factors. And then pests and pathogens. So a couple noticeable ones. We've got some Colorado blue spruce out there. Blue spruce in the Northeast is not doing great lately, largely because it's from a dry environment. It's used to growing in a place with much less humidity and much less rain. So last summer's wet conditions really kicked up some of the needle pass fungi that affect our spruces, as well as our pines and our other evergreens, but we're really seeing it affect spruce quite a bit. Some of these little black dots all along here are Rhizospira needle pass. So another big one that I wanted to point out, when I say usually a tree dies for a bunch of reasons, there's a couple exceptions to that. One of them is when a tree dies for a very specific reason, like emerald ash borer. So invasive beetle that came over to the Midwest, I think in the 90s, or I should know that, but I'm forgetting at the moment, made its way to the Northeast. It specifically affects ash trees. It is affecting 2 out of your 3 ash trees out on this property, and I have no idea why it's not affecting the one over in the corner of the parking lot right there. But the beetles attack the tree, it dies from the top down. Once a tree has lost 50% or more of its live crown, it's well on its way out. The tree over in the back right corner, the ash that is remarkably healthy, that tree is a great opportunity to treat with an insecticide to prevent that tree from going downhill from emerald ash borer. There's not that many ash left that are healthy, so the ones that are, it's really a cool opportunity to retain those. So a couple other assorted things I noticed. So in addition to mower damage directly to trees, even just lawn mowing and having all of that debris pile up around the base can start to have an impact. That's going to hold moisture against the base of the tree and allow for pathogens and fungi to get in there and cause problems. And then, like I said, this line of trees over here has been pretty overgrown by a bunch of invasive vines and other things like the bittersweet that's taking over the spruce on the right. So what did I do? I went back to the original inventory that Don Black did in 2005, had this nice little map. I went out and I looked at all the trees and I rated them based on their current condition. This is largely based on the condition of the crown. That's the easiest way to kind of quickly assess the health of a tree. It also allows me to put some of this information into another database and get some other cool data from that. So I rated all of them. I updated this map mostly for visual purposes because I wanted to point out how many trees have been removed since 2005. So that lighter gray at the bottom, we've lost a lot of trees at the courthouse, and there's some others that are stressed. Some of that can be managed. Some of them should probably be removed. I took the inventory into GIS so that we'll be able to actually use that information and manipulate it in a bunch of different ways based on some of these categorizations. So I measured the diameter of each tree. I gave them, status update where I could. I retained any information about whether it was a memorial tree or an honorary tree, and when it was planted, if I could figure that out, and who planted it. So instead of just a Word document list, we have a nice kind of database of trees now. And I hope that will be used. So now what? Tree care is super essential. So none of us are probably, when we talk about trees having defects, right? It's not a death sentence for a tree. None of us are probably walking around in here without having had some level of medical care. I have a reconstructed knee. I'm sure other folks here, have been through various things. So trees are no exception to that, especially in the built environment. We really need to be providing them with ongoing and routine care and working with a professional and having a plan. It's great to have maintenance staff that are trained in managing trees. That is one component. I would also strongly encourage, any individual organization, business that has a number of trees to establish a relationship with a professional arborist that comes out each year and assesses your trees and does what's needed. So some of the trees need to go. The sugar maples, definitely, they're dead, or they're very close to it. Some trees could use some additional assessment. So things like there's a Colorado blue spruce over on that side of the parking lot. Looks relatively healthy. Definitely has some needle cast issues, probably some spider mites and some other things. So it's lost some chunks of foliage. I don't do plant health care. I've never been trained in plant health care. So that's not something that I can realistically assess the needs or potential effectiveness of. So things like that, an arborist who knows plant health care will be able to look at and make better recommendations. All the trees that can stay would benefit from some routine pruning. And some of that should be done slowly and over time. Anytime you leave a tree for 20 years and just don't touch it, if you go in and start doing a lot of pruning and changing a lot of things, that itself is going to be a source of stress. So slowly catching up on some of the deferred structural pruning would be a recommendation that I would have. Soil management, again, this is something somebody would probably want to do some additional assessment of. Soil testing. UNH does have a soils lab. We can do some of that testing, figure out if there are specific fertilization needs and other things that can help bolster the overall vigor and resilience of your trees. You may have all, excuse me, heard that pines are having a hard time this year, losing a lot of needles. From a forest health perspective, that's not likely to be a major problem on a broad scale. However, in a landscape setting where trees do have those other stresses, there's things that you can do to bolster health. So for white pine specifically, the recommendation is a nitrogen fertilizer. So things like that you wouldn't do in a forest may be really helpful in this setting. So all that gets into that plant healthcare. And if I had one single big recommendation for anyone who has trees that they love and want to keep, it is mulch. Mulch around the base of the tree, ideally as wide as possible. In a perfect world, that would be the critical root zone, or at least out to the drip line of the tree, which is where if you walk around the perimeter of the canopy. It's not a perfect world. Some of these trees don't have space to mulch that wide. Even just a 3 to 4 foot mulch ring around a tree is going to make a difference. Prevents the mower from getting close enough to hit it. It reduces competition from grass and weeds around the tree. It helps moderate moisture coming in, so that when you do get runoff, it's not just all collecting there and kind of flashing that area. Mulch will stay moist. It will retain some of that moisture, allow it to percolate slowly into the soil. And then it's also going to help moderate temperature. So a couple of the trees where even the base of the tree is exposed to sun, the soil is just really dry and compact. And it's going to be a layer of cushion. So if people are it keeps people from walking right around the base and causing compaction, and it helps if they do walk right around the base, it helps prevent that compaction. So mulch. And then some ongoing monitoring. And then there's some trees. We saw the map. We've lost a lot of trees, so we can plant more trees. Sounds like my predecessor was largely responsible for that, so maybe I need to get on it along with 4-H. So, and so that's something that I'm available to help with. If there is a desire to plant trees, I can help recommend the right tree to go in the right location that's gonna withstand some of the stress of being in this environment and what we expect from the future climate. All right, that was a lot. Any questions?
It was a lot.
I know, I was watching your face. I was like, okay, too much. Badass. So,
I've learned a lot more about trees than I ever wanted to learn, so.
great.
In my business, trees are not a good thing, but
What's your business?
I own a marina. Marinas and trees don't mix.
We
Anyway.
can talk. So, yeah.
So great, so I'm assuming we're gonna have Lindsay work with Troy on this.
Yeah, and some of the, the remove, right, we could do that.
Yeah,
I can do it, Troy can do it. Troy and I can do it,
I'd like to have a recommendation of what species we'll be planting, and some of them are memorial trees.
Yeah. What I'm hoping to do is just get a copy of all the slides.
Yes.
And then, we can start, I asked Troy to be here, he's here for another reason too, but, we can begin working with, community service people, and, taking down things that, need to go down, so.
I'll send, I'm gonna give you the copy of the slides, and then I also have the Excel spreadsheet and sort of some more extensive notes on individual trees and what they might need. So
Wonderful.
I will make sure you get all of that.
You did a nice job.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And Troy, thinking maybe your program, once we get this established, can actually take over responsibility for these. Absolutely. For these things.
Great. You did a great job.
That'll take some pressure off Doug even.
Sounds like our long crew needs some retraining.
Yeah.
No, it's really hard. I mean, it's hard to avoid if you're, and it's everywhere. So like none of this is a criticism. This is, I drive around and I look at trees and I'm just like, oh, a mower hit it or planted too deep. Like you can't turn it off once you start to see it. So it's not exclusive to here by any means.
So you run a chainsaw?
Yes.
I saw her up in the tree, so.
Years ago, we said a dog, run, take that tree down, will you?
Yeah, I think we have SOPs now that prevent me from doing that,
Oh,
but I'll have
really?
to check.
That's all right, we'll do it. We can manage.
Yeah.
We have technology for that.
Yeah.
Well, great.
Great. Well, thank you for letting me.
Oh, thank you.
Spout
Thank
about
you.
trees.
Thank you for all that work.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Nice to have the old records to be comparable with them.
It was really interesting. It was like that added a lot to have that, to be able to find those, so.
Okay, any other questions? No? Item 4 is to talk about this transfer from our yeah, would like to look at that further somewhere with your other motion or objection. Okay, let's move on to item 5 and Calvert Customer Sheriff's Department. You guys are all set.
You don't have
Yeah,
to stay.
stay.
Before we do that, Mr. Chairman, can we hear from Troy about the vehicle?
Oh, yeah, I had another new business meeting.
Well, I just thought.
Since you see it, go back to work.
Yeah, he can get back to work.
Well, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Been a second, yeah. They're trying to save him, you're trying to chop him up.
Good morning, everybody. I'm the director of the Community Service Program, Troy Shavit. We are currently looking for the funds to fix a dump truck that the county owns. It has some rust in the interior panels and it needs a few other things. It's a 2013. It has 42,000 miles. Several of the mechanics I spoke to highly recommended for the price that it's gonna cost fixing it, because everything else is relatively solid.
What are we talking about?
The low end of it seems to be around 4,750, 4,750, and the high end would be 6,000.
Some of it, just a little bigger explanation, Mr. Chairman, this truck, is used by community work, primarily for wood delivery, but they also have my dump truck that they use for wood, which I just let the county use. So there is options, if we wanted to put the money in it, it would continue that truck to be available for wood delivery.
You're probably gonna get a few more years out of it anyway. I mean,
The other thing is, it's not that the truck is no good. I mean, if the money's not put into it, it can be utilized, continue to be utilized for plowing, correct, Debbie?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's not like we'd be throwing the truck away if we didn't put money in it. And, if it's the desire of.
is it an inspection issue?
Yes.
It will be now, with
Right.
with the rot, it's an inspection issue. So that's why I'm saying it could be,
Yeah, I get you.
it could be used on the complex when we would be driving it on the road.
Right.
And I don't really have an issue, we still do have trailers to deliver wood, but there is some locations for wood delivery that you can't do with a trailer. That you really need a dump truck. Simply because of the physical location. You just can't back a trailer into it attached to a pickup truck. So, for those occasions, if the county wanted to wait.
Doug, do you have that truck in the capital plan?
I do not have that particular truck, but we do have funds available in the vehicle repair, the .273 for Riverside.
And while it's being done and in the interim, they can use mine. Can use my dump truck. I don't have a problem with it. It's a few years old, but it only has like 17,000 miles in it, so.
We gotta put the dump truck in and make the capital plan. Because it's a 6-year plan, and 6 years of prep.
In the meantime, there's no reason not to fix it.
I have the appraisal if you guys want.
Well, we can just attach it for a minute, for the purpose of the minutes. You can give them the Janet.
Where are budget wise again?
We have about 16,000 left in the vehicle repair fund right now.
You got the word, Troy. Go get it done.
Say it one more time.
Get it done.
Okay.
And you can use you have a key, use my dump and it, if you need a dump, use my dump in the interim.
I appreciate it.
Okay. All righty.
All good.
You all set?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So we all set up on that already, so we can go on to the sheriff.
Yeah, he can use mine. I
Okay.
don't have an issue with that, Mr. Chairman.
All righty. Sheriff's office, yeah, for review. Why?
Good, sir. There's this continuation of, last week, you had, somebody had already covered and painted books here and got extensive knowledge of every particular item that we have.
Good morning. I think the last pieces we had left. We're discussing firearms replacement down the road. Yeah. On the firearm side. The reason that's being submitted is this is a 5-6 year plan. The current issue that the deputies have, those weapons are approaching the 5-year mark. So we'd be heading towards the 10-year mark, that's how we're moving out of this window. That's a long service life for weapons on a daily basis. I start thinking about being able to stay with the same weapon system, interchangeable. Just for the sake of the exercise, we did get a price on a lot of popular vendors with a lot. And weapons are not cheap. You need about 60 of them. And the total for the weapons, for the model we're looking at, we're coming in around 27,000. However, we do carry weapons currently that we typically use to trade. And these manufacturers are actually fairly generous with that. That we take a large chunk out of that. The initial purchase, so we bring it down to close to 12,000. 12.5 roughly. You can have all of the weapons transferred. That would include swapping out the magazines, weapons. Currently, get an updated into a model. And move it on. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge expenditure over a 5-year period or a 10-year period of service life for weapons. So I did include it in this. On the tasers. There's one main company that puts these things out nationwide or worldwide. They are constantly upgrading them, and they are an electronic device. Okay, so you run into modernized software, modern mechanisms that work. They tend to keep a model in play for 3 to 5 years, and then they come out with a newer version. Part of our contract with this company is that they back repairs, usage malfunctions, things like that, that are going to happen. That's part of the purchase and finance. We are nearing the end of our kind of contract with them, and then we'll no longer insure the ones we have. I did reach out to Primex and ask, well, the company won't insure them, but do you? And it's a non-issue for them, so I'm not concerned about that contract. We start with someone who repairs malfunctions that we take out of service. But it is something we need to look at. It's not moving towards the newer model that they do back. It's as far as a training issue, it's almost the same thing that they're using now. It's going to be a minor transitional thing, getting the deputies, but they'll be up to date on the next time. Since we don't use the tasers too, I'm sorry.
I just have two questions. One is, could you, if you haven't, could you be sure to include the House of Correction in that? I think there was some discussion, and it's obviously better if we combine everything together. We train together,
Right.
And we replace together and we get on the site.
That's a great idea.
That's thing number one. Thing number two, one thing that was very insistent in the past when we first went to tasers, which was not that long ago, that these tasers also, when the trigger is activated, a camera is activated.
It depends on the device and the model you're using. We can adjust that and turn that on.
Because that's, that was a very important,
huge issue.
that was a huge issue to the commissioners at the time.
Yeah.
We want to be able to ensure, and it's not that we're doubting any of your staff, nor are we doubting the staff at the jail on the rare occasion when tasers need to be used. Probably used more at the jail than they are by your staff. We want there to be a recording for the protection of the officer. Primarily for the protection of the officer, we want a recording, so we want to make sure that was included in the model in which you're looking it up.
And we actually double up on that safety mechanism. The deputies carrying these typically have one. We have switched it up. So that interaction is going to be reported before. The tasers getting rid. The tasers we currently use do record whether or not the safety is activated or deactivated. If the trigger was pulled, how long it was pulled. The taser is set up with a default 5-second burst. That's what it's going to do when it shuts back off. Then you have to hit it again to get a second charge. That's all recorded. So all you have to do is plug it in and your support instructor that does this on a regular basis. It downloads everything that's been done on that taser, all through its history since the last time it's checked it. So we can see if it's turned on, activated, whether it was just off safe, or the background safe, we can see all. So we can reconstruct that as well.
So is the camera actually turned on as automatically though, or?
That model would be, as soon as you put it on the fire,
Yeah,
that camera's gonna act.
it does.
It activates a laser, a flashlight, and a camera. And you can pick through the software settings, whether, hey, we don't want the laser, we just want a flashlight, or you can pick all of those options. We have it all turned on. So as it comes on, it's lit up.
The other piece of this, Mr. Chairman, it's not just if it's discharged. It's how, you know,
Yeah, right.
we also, our policies also include how the taser is used as a deterrent.
Yeah.
You know, so we want to ensure that our use of force continuing, both at the sheriff's department and at the House of Correction, is used the way in which it's designed, which is an escalating use of force or de-escalating, depending on how you want to look at it, you know, depending on, so we don't want to have it as a device, a threatening device. We want to make sure it's used appropriately. And the cameras and the body cameras and the cameras inside the jail that Superintendent Brackett talked about earlier when he did his presentation are all the devices that we have to ensure that those weapons are being deployed appropriately. And when I say deployed, I don't necessarily mean used, I mean pulled out and pointed.
What,
That's the point.
is there if these things sit around for a while, is there some kind of like a test you run on them to make sure that they're okay, or like a maintenance, I'm like with a generator, we run generators every 30 days. I figured that since it's an electronic device, having it sit around for 6 months, we might be.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We do.
Yeah.
And that's actually built into our policy. If the officer is carrying a taser that day. So the part that you guys will generally see is where the dark. Right, from the wires. That's detachable wire and replaceable. And every time that taser is discharged, that cartridge is expended. It's useless. You save it as evidence. It's disposable. The deputy at the beginning of their shift will take that off. And they do have the capability on these tasers without that cartridge to take it and what they call the fire side. To push the taser against a body part. And instead of having this two darts come out, you've got two prongs that are hitting the skin. But we can safely test it with the cartridge off. So it's beginning of shift, they take the cartridge off, put it on fire, pull the trigger, make sure it's operating for 5 seconds, put it back down, and close it. And part of that, what I was talking about with these records, is we can actually pull a taser out of use, look at it and say, okay, he works or she worked Monday through Friday on these days. Taser was tested every one of those days and functioning properly. Tells the officer it's working. It has a constant display of what their battery is and how much of a charge they have left. And it tells them if there's any kind of. So yes, there is a safety check that's used every time. So I'm assuming on the vehicle, we're gonna continue to handle the vehicle, but during capital request, we're gonna handle the vehicles as well as that. Rotating them in and out.
Yeah, and there's some in the budget this year, which, you know, we kind of put the brakes on for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, I've been communicating with Dougie about that, and, yeah, that's the way we have to double up a little bit, but after this year, we'll you know, we'll be back into a
normal cycle. Yeah, okay. Got it. All right, you guys have any questions on it? Yeah. As long as they're being tested. Oh, yeah. An old friend of mine passed away. No, you're not testing me. Got a friend of mine, he got tased a couple times. And he leaves mentally ill. I can attest that they do
Yeah, they'll wake you up.
And you said,
You've got, don't have us.
No,
not fun.
it's been our practice at the House of Correction to actually constitute taser on anybody who is trained and certified to carry a taser. And, the purpose of that is we want these officers to recognize what they're inflicting on the inmate. And the way to do that
Is to feel it yourself.
is to feel it themselves, so they know this isn't some kind of joke. When they did my son, because he went through taser classes, they were kind enough to take it for me, so it's something that I actually have on my phone. And it's got out all the frustrations I've had for 40 years. All those times I got to watch. I know. But necessary to protect the interests of the people that might be on the other end of the table.
We can talk about these other items too.
What else we got? There was,
The shit, the firearms and the fireproof file storage. Or-
So the firearms was the part about block
Right.
that we brought up. The fireproof storage. We don't have cabinets that are rated past 10 kilometers anywhere downstairs. So moving forward, I think with requirements and retention requirements with public records, it would be who our agency to have some of, at least our critical records that are printed inside some of these cabinets. And that total could go up or down depending on how many we actually need. I think I was generous in how many we probably need. And I think we'll need less than that, but I'd like to at least get the critical records and files and something like that.
what about evidence? How bad you treated that?
So evidence is all in the evidence vault. It's pretty well protected in documents these days that are evidence. It's a whatever contracts, whatever written things we have are also scanned in, so they're in the CAD system. Physical evidence, like on that page, whatever's being locked up, that's in the vault. That's not an issue that we're concerned with. My concern is these printed investigations or lengthy reports that are 50 some odd pages long. Yes, we do have a digital copy of it, but 5, 6, 10 years from now, if somebody needs that record, I don't want it to advantage to an office file. That
How long do you retain though?
a minimum of 7 years.
I mean, is there a procedure in place that a certain number of years to
Purge them out.
destroy it? Yeah, or how's that
We
work?
haven't even approached that yet, because I don't think we're at a point where I see anything that destroy.
I mean, how far back do we have records?
I would say at least 15 years.
Yeah, but the,
So,
the major said.
so they were purged at some point
Yeah,
over the
they
years.
do.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, the
Yeah.
jail purge is 7 years.
yeah.
And they do. They literally go in after, starting at the 8th year and actually do purge. So
Right.
now, everything that is computerized stays
Right,
obviously in the
right.
computer, but things like court orders, and things like that we have to get a copy of because we have to act on those. They're purged after 7 years. Now, if there's an active case, that won't get purged. And also, as you know, our system, our computer system, in terms of the recordings of phone calls, and those things, I have a life expectancy of about a year, on live recovery. However, if there's some form of an investigation, they can be downloaded and taken off the system. So, that seems to have been adequate. Usually if something happens and they need phone calls, we'll know it within a year's period of time.
But I imagine there's a best practice for retention of files. I think we should look at that if we're spending, $6,000 for a file, to put in records that should have been purged, I think we should look at that.
Yeah, I agree. And I wouldn't be putting things in that really have no retention purpose. This is for hard copy records that are
Right.
completed investigations that we really do need to reclaim. But we have to, like I said, the number of cabinets that we actually need by the time we're done with it, I don't know that it's gonna be that high, but there are some.
Well, what happened in 6 years?
Well, the jail set in that, you know.
All right, any question, any other issues we have on that?
I think we have all the files to see after that.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Good to see you. Oh, wait, let's talk about, before you leave, why don't we talk about the courthouse policy already? You guys. Put the dog shoot.
Yeah, dog animal issue.
Yeah, before you take off. all right?
You have a current copy of the proposal now.
Right,
It's been vetted by Attorney Thomas Clausen, who's our labor attorney, and also vetted by our county attorney, Emily Garrod, for legal reasons. They both in agreement that this policy as written is perfectly fine because it meets with the ADA federal requirements, which is federal
Right.
law. So
okay,
in their opinion, as long as it meets federal law, they're good with the policy.
And we did share it with the court.
you did the court, right?
Yes, also Clerk Myers,
Myers,
she
yeah.
said she was on board with anything that's federal law and ADA requirements. Now, what we tried to outline in the policy is not put the burden on the court security officer that's at the front entrance.
Right.
So when
Someone
someone,
to back it up.
yeah, someone
Yeah.
comes in with a service animal, we're not gonna challenge him too heavily. We're gonna send him up to the clerk's office for either Clerk Myers or a designee. And then he or she will coordinate with the presiding judge, so the judge can make the proper accommodations for the service animal and the person, whether they're testifying, they might be the defendant, they might be an attorney, we don't know.
Gotcha. All right, so why don't we, Chair will entertain a motion to adopt this courthouse policy regarding animals. Move in second, and any further discussion? Those in favor of adoption, indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, vote unanimous. Thank you, guys, on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Sharon.
All right, Doug, I guess we're gonna move to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Really big discussion. Anybody need a fire recess? No? All right, I got you. Yeah. You can hear from there anyway, Rob. All righty.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Maintenance has identified over 100 areas of concern on the county complex, areas that need attention. We have, over the past few months, whittled that down to 31 projects, we're calling them, concerned areas. We have those spelled out in an Excel spreadsheet in front of you on 5 different sheets with 5 different locations. That would be the courthouse, Riverside, HOC, the Alms House, and Hyder House.
I'm assuming this is the document back.
Correct. The only item I'm waiting for a number right now on is paving, and I should have that imminently. KC Paving is providing us with a complimentary quote, so we have some idea how much it's gonna cost to get all of the areas of Riverside, the areas around Hyder, and both parking lots at the jail resurfaced. I've placed priorities on these items. Red is the highest priority, yellow is medium priority, and green is either low priority or something we can take care of ourselves. A lot of the items that we removed from this list are items that the maintenance crew is taking care of themselves. We have a lot of talented guys, painting and contracting and plumbing experience, and we have an electrician on staff. And these are not priority projects, so they're able to pick at them.
So I'm assuming the other 70 issues you guys have got, probably we would work that through operating budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
The amounts that I have, the totals I have currently for high priority is $2,136,000. Medium priority exclusive of the paving quote is $2,343,000. And low priority is $3,733,000. That's also not including the dump truck that the chairman just spoke of. If I remember correctly, the state contract for a dump body cabin chassis 1 ton was $66,000 from McFarland Ford when we looked at it last year.
Sounds right. I looked at it myself.
Yeah, it's up there. It's up there. Most of the items that you see here are items that just due to age and erosion. There's a lot of issues on the complex with water drainage, and that creates other issues. We have culvert replacements. Some of the highest priority areas of concern for me, obviously, are life safety electrical repairs. We have a lot of older electrical panels around here. And as we found out during the ice storms, we do not have complete coverage for our generators. We need that in this building because we have folks in this building that are here 24 hours, and that's a fire department requirement. Fire panel replacements for the jail, which is at its maximum and really is a bit concerning for the size. It's actually gone beyond the size it was ever designed for. Each time we had it tested 4 times a year, they remind us of that. So we have a quote in there for that.
Could you just run through these?
Sure.
You know, one at a time, just
Will do.
quickly, so we.
Will do.
Around and stick around.
Okay. For a courthouse, we have sewage pump replacements and sprinkler backflow installations. Group those together. The flagpoles out front need replacement.
Just so for some perspective, Commissioner McGuire, do you remember the last time we replaced those sewer pumps?
Yeah.
I mean, that's well over 20 years.
Yeah.
Those are pumps that are located in back of the area of the cafeteria.
Right.
Mhm.
Are those drum and rub pumps, you know?
Yes, they are. Yeah, they're rugs. Yeah. We have a life.
They're pretty good pumps, but they wear out.
Yes, and add to that the stuff that's being introduced into the sewage system is really what's wearing them. Sanitary products and stuff, or the construction of them now is actually abrasive to cast iron. And the erosion over the 20 years, obviously they're not as efficient as they used to be. So we're having quite a few service calls to have AAA come out and pull them out.
So those flagpoles were rusted out.
One's bent, actually. The right one is bent.
Yeah.
Yeah, the left one is starting to show stress fractures about 8 feet up. You can actually see it if you look at the right-hand flagpole. It's a large bulge in the flagpole itself.
I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an area of concern for us. Life safety electrical repairs, we're talking about rewiring basically the entire courthouse and providing it with a proper generator backup. So no outlets will be dead, no lights will be dead. You'll have complete operation if there ever should be a power outage.
Well, if I remember correctly, they only have power now to run emergency lights and
And the sheriff's office.
the sheriff's office.
That's correct, yeah, and it's
down.
Yeah, and it's on a 40-year-old generator. It's out in the shed there, which used to be, from what I hear, it used to be one of Riverside's generators.
That's right, we moved it over.
Fire panel replacement, we have considerable square footage in this building that is occupied, that was not occupied when that fire panel was put in, and we need appropriate sensors and coverage of strobes and sirens, and we cannot get that with the current fire panel. So we get a quote from
this age.
Yeah, if it's age, yeah, it has limited addressing. So, the quote we got for that's $124,000. Roof replacement, Garland Companies was nice enough to give us a complete assessment of the roof. That will obviously be after the air handling project. Not something that is imminent. We won't even go near that until all that work's done up there.
Is that for the entire building?
Correct. And we have packets. I'm not sure if Janet passed them out, but there are packets there that show you there's many pictures of the conditions of the roof and what we're dealing with up there. Stormwater runoff and management. The exact same issue that we had over here for community corrections is happening on the other side of the main entrance. It's a mirrored condition, so I just used the quote of 30,000. That's what it was to fix this side.
The trick would be this time to catch it before it does the damage.
Exactly, yeah, it's very slow, but we see where it's starting downstairs in the archives room. So I want to get ahead of that. Carpet replacement, That's self-explanatory. If you've ever been in the courtrooms or anywhere in the hallways, it's starting to show wear from the age. On to Riverside, building security, I believe we discussed that last time. I went with the one source security quote for 67,000. Sewer pipeline, that's the highest priority.
Could we talk just for a minute about the security issue? More and more now, we've been getting, and I mean this with all respect, strangers coming into the building, that have no reason to be there. And it's tied up quite a bit of staff time, and it's been of concern to the staff, you know, based on other things that have happened, you know, like the shootings in Concord and, you know, at State Hospital, and it's a little difficult to provide security at Riverside because we need to keep it open for visitors. I mean, that's a requirement. But working with, you know, Gary DiMartino, who did all the security for this building plus the federal courthouse, there's things we can do to enhance it. And also, a nursing home is quite a vulnerable place. So it's truly become a concern from the department heads and the employees when they see something that occurs. There's no reason why we shouldn't be next, or maybe never happen. But
Who are these strangers? Why are they there?
well, you know, a lot of times they're drug addicted people. You know, that come from Southeastern. It's almost, I wouldn't say never from the jail, but the jail's usually really good about it in making sure that somebody has been provided the assets for a ride. They'll give them a bus ticket. You know, we have bus tickets through Coast, so they can just walk over to the bus stop. We usually encourage them, let them use the phone to call somebody to pick them up. Not always, but a lot of times their release is planned, so they would have somebody there to pick them up. So the jail's not the critical issue, but, you know, the people who walk to Southeastern in an effort because they think they can just walk in the building and get treatment, that's not the case. And so those people have been our largest issues to this point. And they just appear. We have been a little better about locking limiting the ability to get in, right, but it also limits the ability for staff to get in when they punch in. So that's why we're looking at this type of system.
You know, it seems to me that if you think about it, it kind of works both ways, because the population that we're dealing with is the actual patient. You know, you're talking about a 6-year plan here. 100% of those people in that building are going to have it. That's just the way it's going. I mean, when I first got here, we only had 5% of people had it. Now we're around 85%. So it's not inconceivable that within 6 years you're going to have 100% of the population that's so to me, the security works both ways. If they can't get in, if they can't get out, they can't get in. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, we've also, I think, done as you know, as we've discussed, CMS has required us to develop a plan that shows our vulnerabilities at the facility. So, you know, one of the vulnerabilities that we identified a few years ago was the ability of residents to walk out because we have so many exits.
Right. The place was just not designed for the population.
And you know, so we did in the last capital plan, put cameras at the exits so that if we were missing a resident, we would at least know which direction to look. Also, what was an advantage was the the allowance of the delegation to, provide, aerial security. So that if the resident was confused and was walking on the complex, we could fly a drone and locate them. It's a reality. We have people that are capable of being out on their own, after assessment and talking to their guardians or maybe they don't have a guardian because they're confident, they're just physically disabled. And they want to walk around. Sometimes they just keep walking. And that's happened a few times. So you're right. I mean, security goes from all ends of this. And we've made steps. Fortunately, we haven't had anybody walk away and get hurt. But it's a reality in the nursing home business, unfortunately. It is. I'm sorry, Doug. I didn't
No worries. No, that needs to
No,
be
it's a good
said.
thing for us to talk about, because if you don't, if we're gonna end up keeping this facility, we've got to do with security and.
And even if we don't, I mean,
Right.
even if there is
Oh, there's another use,
another facility,
right?
down the road,
And that's value to the building.
yeah, I'm not sure we can wait the
No.
amount of time it would take to construct it. I mean, having one bad incident with somebody that comes in,
Right.
it'll
It'll fail compared to what we're talking.
fail compared to what we're talking about.
Right.
Sir, could I say something?
Ooh, it's out of the way. Well,
Sure thing.
yeah, okay, go ahead.
Coming downstairs, I come down, late at night, and I've found many people in the lobby, totally confused as to what they want, but I send them on their merry way. Because they're just looking to get in for some reason. They can't give me a reason what they want to do in there, but I just send them on their way.
We've had this, we've had this.
But it's worse
It's
now,
worse now.
and I think with incidences that happened like at the state hospital where there was, shootings
Right.
and
Well, they don't know if it's not right there. They think they're in the courthouse when they're in the nursing home.
well, and the other thing is, it's, and unfortunately, it's a product of the time, where there's a real enhancement of that type of security issue all over the country.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to think that we would somehow be exempt, we're exempt from that.
The instances of folks that are entering the home that are in different stages of crisis, mental crisis, is really, it's increasing. We haven't had anybody who's not in crisis come in. It's definitely increasing.
I'm sorry, Doug.
No worries.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine. Sewer pipelining, there is a packet that I brought in this morning, I believe, with the pictures of that, the different conditions of the sewer pipeline. To sum it up, the bottom of the sewer pipes throughout the facility are rotten. They're buried, they're missing, through our camera inspection that they found. So the quote that we got was to line the pipes that they can't access and replace the ones that are in the ceiling that they can. It's going to be a bit disruptive for the residents because they have to dig pits in either ends of the building and start on that from the ends of the building there. But that is a high priority for us.
And we do not, I did receive a question from Representative Newton. We do not have as-built plans for the sewer lines.
Yeah, we've looked high and low for those.
And, I
I'm
think,
assuming they're 4-inch lines, and most of them.
For 3, believe it or not, 3, yeah. So really, effectively, we're down to maybe 1.5 inches, maybe a hemisphere in
Yeah.
some spots.
Yeah.
And-
There's the tuberculosis, down, and you got the bottom rod down.
Exactly, and sand fills it, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you try to jet it, you may
Right.
even collapse the
You make
top.
it worse, yeah, make it worse.
Yeah,
What's the figure on
that is $90,000 on that.
Actually, I thought it'd be more than that.
so in actuality, Doug, with the camera that this company sent through, the fact that we're leaving it, for lack of a better term,
Right.
internally sleeving it,
Mhm.
well, is likely actually to give us more space than what we probably have now.
I asked that, I said, what are we gonna do as far as efficiency? And he said that's why they're replacing the pipes that they can access as opposed to lining them, because lining them does take up some
Yeah,
of the
it
diameter
reduces-
of the pipe.
Right.
He said it's much easier and actually less expensive. They're talking, $500 a foot for some of these. Because of the complexity of the junctions and the way that the building is built. The plumbing is pretty straightforward in there as far as the drains. They run the length of the building. Things get tricky when you get down into the PT area where the kitchen was added on and some of the other places were added on there. They feel pretty confident that they can, Wind River feels pretty confident they'd be able to mitigate any of the damage that we're having. I'm just crossing my fingers and hope that they can get to it before we have another incident of the sewage breaking on us. Breaker panel replacement, the breaker.
If we move on, is the,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a question.
Mhm.
On the sewer lines and stuff, how many fixtures are in this building?
Well, we have 221 beds. So we're at 112 rooms. And there's probably roughly 60 or 70 toilets. Each room has its own sink. Plus we have the kitchen, we have 5 tubs, we have kitchenettes, we have nurses stations. The plumbing in there is pretty complex. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no as-built, no drawings for
Not that we can
where
find.
it's built.
Not that we can find, we have access to all the blueprints that are available, and for some reason, there was none for the sewer. And when you look at the sewer pipes, it really looks like it was an afterthought.
Well, that's what happened when you build stuff on a cheap, that's what they did. I
Yeah,
was here when they did it, and, you got what you get. And I'm positive, in the '70s, nobody did as-built plans. It wasn't until the '80s that actually municipalities were requiring as-built plans, even though they had projects back.
Mhm.
It took a long time for that to occur.
yeah.
Was there a competing quote to the folks that?
So, I haven't put any of these out to bid. These are just complimentary quotes from companies, so we have some idea of where we need to be at to ask for the money for the 6-year plan. Thankfully, the vendors that are on here have been super helpful and cooperative because I haven't priced this stuff, honestly.
And they do know that everything will be having to go out to bid.
Right.
So, but, we need to start somewhere.
Right.
Nobody's gonna give you a bid if there's no assurance that the money's there.
Opportunity.
Yeah, that we can't really go out to a competitive bid without the idea that the money's there. They're not gonna spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
Well, someone has to spec it, it's gonna get spec.
It's gotta get spec'd and it's gotta get.
How do you bid on something that you don't really know?
Well, in this case, we did spend,
Some money.
fortunately, it was only, what, $1,000 done?
Yeah, they did a great,
They did
a great service for us. Yeah,
So in
they were there for
this
days.
case, we have their own documents that,
Mhm.
that can be shared. But we were honest with everybody that's provided us these courtesy quotes, that they have to go out to bid. We
Yeah,
just
and
can't.
that's been tough. That's been tough. Some vendors have been understanding, some vendors didn't, yeah, exactly. They didn't want anything to do with it. So.
And that's one of the reasons why Doug's stuff is at the tail end of the presentations, because it was harder to get some quotes. Unfortunately, we couldn't even get the asphalt quotes still.
Right, till possibly today.
I remember KC, had done some stuff for us 20 years ago, and I said, give Kevin Cooper a call and see if he'll, is willing to help us. He's local. He can at least give us an idea of the cost.
Yeah, and he did come out and survey over the holiday weekend. He did come out and look at it.
Yeah,
We are.
yeah, trying to remember. So we hope, the brothers, right?
Yeah, they spec'd it and then it went out to bid, they didn't bid on it.
Yeah.
Right, they spent with them
We have electrical panels in the building. The panels are 50 years old. The breakers are obsolete. They haven't been available for years. We are running into situations where some of these breakers, if faulted, will not trip. They'll actually stay on and start sizzling the wires and sizzling the outlet. That's a race against time. We really need to get that taken care of. That number there is buying 28 panels, buying all the breakers, buying all the wire, and having our electrician do the panels one at a time. That would be $1.5 million job if we were to send it out to somebody. Life safety
And
electric.
he's comfortable doing that. but-
Yes, yep. Yeah, we have him and we have Jason, who has 10 years as apprentice electrical. Those two work great together.
So he can just kind of back them out.
Yeah.
To, you know, especially still buy the breakers. All that electrical, all those
Yeah.
electrical services of all, I mean, all the industries changed
Mhm.
so much in the last 10 years.
Sure.
And I know in my
Availability
availability, I
is
can't buy breakers, you know. I mean, depending on what company you pick with, a lot of them have gone out of business,
Mhm.
changed it over, they have generics that you buy, the generics ain't with it.
Sure. And none of the electrical stuff is manufactured in the United States anymore. It's all
Right.
overseas, so availability sometimes is an issue.
Yeah.
We saw that during COVID. The next part of life safety electrical for Riverside is Du Bois and King's survey of the facility about what to do with our transfer switches that sometimes don't transfer and where to place the generators. One of the real problems we have when we have a power outage here is keeping diesel in these generators. We have a generator out back of the jail that burns 80 gallons an hour and only has a 500-gallon tank under the belly. So our emergency plan is 2 maintenance guys with a hand crank and gravity feeding diesel into it, and they can barely keep it fed at the rate that it uses now. So we're looking at going to natural gas generators. That would give us the flexibility to just not worry about and just have the electricity be on and not have to have a mad dash to get diesel here. We have a state contract with, I believe Justin said it was National Guard to deliver diesel. The issue that we had was the depot where they fill the fuel trucks didn't have electricity.
Right.
So they couldn't even get diesel into the trucks to get it out here. Thankfully, we have a real dedicated maintenance crew that, you know, will drop everything and will hump fuel from the middle of town to here all day long to keep things running. And we have had to do that. We had to do it for 3 days last time.
I do have a contact with public service. Although that person unfortunately was away during the last, the 3-day outage. The prior one though, I reached out to my contact and she sent somebody right over.
Mhm.
And you know, the frustrating part this time is it was a 10-minute fix.
Yeah.
It was literally a 10-minute fix. I know and we waited 3 days. I know we're still a priority site like the hospital. They say that, but they just don't.
Not 3 days.
Yeah.
No, and literally it was just a switch on a transformer.
Yeah, they use a hot stick, a fiberglass pole, and the fuses are on the pole. And
Yeah.
just boom.
Yeah, and we can see it.
I actually asked the gentleman if I could purchase a hot stick and do it myself, because he didn't have any safety equipment on. He didn't have gloves or just safety glasses, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if I want you up in a truck.
yeah, I don't think so. You know, I tell you at that point though, I was.
I think it was a little facetious.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to a real.
Yeah. But 3 days without electricity, it was starting to become a real problem, especially at the jail, because the laundry industry was down. So
Right.
they do Riverside laundry, they do the jail's laundry, so then we get into infection control, food service,
yeah.
yeah. You know, the inmates get cranky when they have peanut butter and jelly and.
I've got no problem with swapping all this over to natural gas because it's gonna be there, it doesn't rely on electricity, it's pressure fed. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons why we should be doing that long term. I mean, the Arms House has been there 150 years, it's gonna
Right.
probably be there another 100 years.
Right, and we have a natural gas generator on the Alms House for Southeastern and Kane services, and we have a natural gas generator at Hyder. And those are the 2 trouble-free units.
Right.
They get their preventive maintenances and they always work.
Yeah.
Generator replacement, bathtub replacements. We did the tub floors at the direction of the state inspector last year.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at the bathtubs themselves. Some of those bathtubs are 25 years old. They're fiberglass, they're cracking just like a fiberglass boat would. We're repairing them with Bondo at this point, just to keep water in them. But they're rapidly deteriorating.
That won't last, that's only gonna last so long.
Yeah, and again, with you're obviously aware of the changing population we're having there. We're starting to have issues with getting bariatric folks in and out of the tubs, so that's a real problem. Stormwater management, culverts and catch basins. We got a quote from Mike Feely, a local excavator, to replace the rotted culverts. Same issue, steel culverts in the sand in the parking lot under here, where they're under the parking lot, the bottom's missing. And we're starting to see depressions and failures above the culverts where folks are driving. That's why I made that a medium priority. Sure. Yes, sir.
On the bathtub replacements, is
Yes.
there any chance of just going to like a handicap shower instead?
I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert
We
on
don't have,
bathing.
a large percentage of our population, even with a shower chair, it's not effective. Because of their, their body, in some cases it would be effective. In some cases, because of their lack of ability to control anything in their body. So like everybody that we have to use a Hoyer lift as opposed to a stand-in pivot lift. We really need a tub in order to effectively clean someone. And so the theory of the new nursing home was that there would be showers in the rooms. And that would be particularly helpful for those people that obviously could use them, but there would still be a tub room. Even in the new facility.
And our existing facility, all the tub rooms have a separate shower facility on the side. But from what I understand from nursing, and I discovered this when I did the tub room floors, one of my suggestions was, why don't we just do showers? So a lot of folks who are non-ambulatory cannot have a shower in their care plan. Right, even a shower chair,
It's very difficult in a shower chair to clean. If you can just envision the chair, it's difficult to clean someone's entire body.
Right.
I would encourage you, whenever they are replaced, make sure that they put a mortar bed under the shower whenever they set the shower.
Sure, we have,
That'll make them last a lot longer than.
the building's 10-inch concrete, reinforced concrete. It was built, in 70 and then in 76.
But the bottom doesn't, the concrete doesn't reach up to the bottom of the fiberglass tub. And so that space in between there, it helps to make it last longer.
The
Put a
tubs,
mortar bed.
the tubs that we have jacks, screw jacks, adjustables. Yeah.
It'll make them last longer
All right.
it'll just make them last longer. It's like a cast iron tub. Instead of fiberglass. Because the fiberglass gives, no matter.
Yeah.
You got the legs all over the place. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was shocked at the lack of variety in the tub market. You have
right.
residential tubs for your house that you can get for $5,500, and then you have medical grade ones that go up to 30, 40, 50.
That's right.
With gantries and all sorts of other accoutrements. Gas heaters, we have 4 tub rooms that do not have heat. Residents are complaining from, well, not complaining, it's legitimate, but from November till about April about the temperature in the tub rooms. And we have unified heat on the floors. So if we turn the heat up just to warm up the tub room, it'll burn the residents right out of the rest of the facility. I mean, it can get up to almost 90 degrees in there with the heat that we have now. So those are just small supplemental, like Resner natural gas heaters. We have 2 of them in the tub rooms now, and those ones work great. So I bundled those together. Culverts and catch basins, just went over that. The infection control issue with laundry. We have an issue in laundry because of the layout in Riverside, where the dirty linens can come in contact with some of the clean linens. The rooms are next to each other, only separated by a set of bifolding doors. We have issues with the dryers. The woman who does the drying of the blankets will have to stop the dryer 4 or 5 times during a dry cycle to unfold comforters, unfold sheets, just to get them dry. The dryers themselves work fine, but they're also 30 years old. So they're asking for a reversing dryer, which I guess during the cycle goes 5 times one way, 5 times the other, and will prevent that sort of thing. So we can have laundry staff folding laundry and doing other stuff besides just monitoring the blankets. Sanitizing washer. There are instances where residents will have soiled laundry, and that soiled laundry needs to be treated by itself and not put into a large load with other laundry where it can possibly contaminate. The water does get hot enough, but infection control protocol is asking if we have any way to isolate those laundries from the rest of the laundry. Laundry carts, they're operating on some really old laundry carts over there. We're doing the best we can fixing them. You know, it's wood shop. We're replacing wheels, we're replacing wood, we're replacing wire. They're really beat pretty bad, but we keep them going. They could use some new ones over there. Flooring, their flooring is worn through in the laundry room. They have 12-inch tile. It's not asbestos, it's just VCT in there. But we got a quote for an epoxy floor in there that's waterproof and safe from slippage, because when you get that floor wet, it is pretty slippery in there. And curtains, laundry put in a request for curtains. I guess our curtains are the age of the facility now and are fraying beyond use. Some of the hooks are not able to be retained to even hang them up. And the seamstress does a great job at keeping those going, but they're about at the end of their life cycle, I believe. Those are probably 50 years old as well, some of them. Let's see, culvert. Oh, looks like I got a yeah, it looks like I got a double there. Yeah, culvert replacement. That's drainage on the other side of Southeastern Services going back down the hill towards the salt shed. We're getting major runoff there. We're getting major erosion around the back of that building. And the lawnmower shed itself from the erosion is actually starting to shift, and the bottom foundation is starting to move around just because of the soil eroding from the runoff. So we got a quote for 80 from St. Hilaire, the folks who did this here, to move some earth around down there and to make the runoff go back down towards the river. And there's also some EPA involvement there because it is stormwater runoff, and we have to have them involved in some permitting. And that's all together. Smokestack decommissioning, that is a high priority. I had 2 companies come out, both gave me the exact same number. Had American Excavating from Raymond and another firm out of Boston. They both looked at that smokestack and agreed that it needs to come down sooner rather than later because it's starting to fail. Foundation of it is starting to bow out and losing bricks pretty rapidly, and that's right near the daycare, so that really concerns me. Moving on to.
We don't have anything tied into that stack.
No, sir.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Moving on to HOC. This is the third part of the Du Bois and King assessment for moving the generators around, replacing them with natural gas, replacing the transfer switch. We have a transfer switch at the jail that's been serviced by professionals 3 times, and it still isn't reliably transferring over when we have a power outage.
And you can imagine what it creates, right? I mean, a portion of the jail is totally black when the power is out.
Sure, everything exclusive of the heat and a hood light over the kitchen stove. Those are the 2 things that stay on.
Until such time as somebody from maintenance comes in, and that's that's a problem. Well, no,
it's a real problem.
but it's more than that too. It's a scary situation for the officers because, you know, you're depending on the inmates locking in, all right? And of course, you know, once they're locked in, they're locked in.
Right.
You know, yes, we have keys, but you know, there's a lot to using keys
Well, that
in an
facility,
electronic jail.
But electronic jail.
They lose camera. They lose any electronic control from central control over any part of the jail. There's
doors, everything.
The doors.
Switching. Yep.
The kitchen, any of the appliances, so they can't eat. They lose refrigerators. It's a big deal. And that transfer switch, apparently the brand itself is problematic, they said. That particular variety.
And you know, it
Sometimes that happens when you have.
well, we had a maintenance person who
You have low bid.
without best judgment, flipped the switch themselves.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we resort to. We have to open the door of this transfer switch and risk an arc flash when the thing gets thrown. I mean, could get electrocuted. It's pretty scary stuff, but that's what we're gonna work with, so. That's on the list there. Sprinkler system and backflow installation device in the old jail, that is mandated by Dover Water. They want to see a backflow device on the sprinkler there for the old jail. IB doors.
Is there any other backflow devices that we need on the other, all these buildings are required backflow?
Right. Currently, we do not have one on the sprinkler for this building, and we do not have one on the sprinkler for the old jail. Everything else. has
You're gonna have to
backflows.
add it because they're requiring.
Mhm.
I know they're required at my marina.
Yep, that's what I got for a number there from those folks. They, Dover Fire, when they did their inspection last year, brought that to my attention that we needed those 2 backflows there.
You might as well add these other buildings because they're gonna catch up to us.
So IB doors in the IB area, they have difficulty getting products in and out with the pallet jack system that they have right now. Yeah, they're just the width of the doors, and actually one door is being kind of ripped out of the foundation constantly. We've repaired it with plates. It's just from use, just from getting hit with the pallet jack and the items coming in and out. Their loading dock is very narrow. I'd like to get them a steel ramp that extends out so they can have some area, because it's extremely dangerous right now bringing a pallet jack out of the back door and your back is to the edge of the dock. You're basically standing here trying to turn that around, and there's real danger for somebody getting injured there. I like to clean that up for them and give them some room so that area actually flows. Booking stairwell and retaining wall repair. On the booking side, that whole end of the parking lot, we believe from where we piled the snow, actually the slow drainage of the snow, it's starting to destroy the parking lot over there and erode behind that retaining wall.
We had a problem with that wall.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, we reinforced it and fenced it.
Right.
A number,
If you,
about 15, 20 years.
Yeah, about 15 years.
It wasn't long after the jail was completed,
Right.
so.
Yeah, but
my-
after the jail.
So after this repair, we're gonna go through with a different protocol for where we store the snow. We get it down towards the MS4 quickly after the storm, so we don't have that water runoff and damage going through there. Parking lot repaving, we're waiting on a number for that. The fire panel, I spoke about that earlier. The fire panel at the jail is the age of the jail, and it is beyond its addressing limits. So we actually, for some of the areas that they're occupying now, they've daisy chained alarm sensors together. So if you have a fire in one room, it could theoretically say that there's a fire in a completely different room because they're chained in a row and there's only one address available. When they come to do the test quarterly, they can only test 10 to 15 devices and they have to reset the panel because the software is old and I guess it's crunchy, not up to snuff.
What's happened in the base of the arms house? We had a fire panel problem in the arms house.
Yeah,
back many years ago, and then we spent some money on it, and then we said we were gonna upgrade, but we ended up not upgrading it.
Right.
And so, what's going on with that? Where's that?
What we have right now is we had a dialer issue actually that kept giving us alarms about saying that the phone line was off hook.
Yeah.
So we've replaced the second physical phone line, the POTS line, with a cell backup. We had a cell dialer put in there. I believe RB Allen did it for us. So we haven't had an issue with that yet. The fire panels are sound. Just the one at the jail is old. The one at Riverside is brand new. We finally have that sorted out. There was some growing pains there, but that one's working fine. Hider works fine, and the one for this building needs some additional equipment, but is beyond its capacity. So we have to get that taken care of. We have next almshouse. Right now, the boiler for the south side of the almshouse is leaking water about a half a gallon a day. It gets refilled easy enough, but it's going to be a real problem once heating season comes. Actually, the boiler itself was set directly on concrete, which I guess is a no-no. Put in. The guys who came told us that they have a steel plate down there, so it's allowed to expand and contract. And they saw some other issues there too with circulator pumps and some of the zones. Again, this is a common theme that we find here as the county expands and as we use more space in these buildings. Additions are made, and it's not always best practice. Sometimes it's just quick, sometimes it's just convenient. And that's what we found here. So they want to redo some of the circulator pumps, give it more uniform heat for the folks in Southeastern and now the folks that are in Kane House. So that's a high priority for us. Range hoods and ansel suppression systems. That should be 60,000 altogether. Cane House and Southeastern New Hampshire Services do not have a Dover Fire approved range hood, and they do not have suppression systems. They don't have a range hood. Right now, they're using crock pots and skillets and all sorts of other dangerous items that set the fire alarm off and have the fire department come out pretty regularly during the summer.
People outside, cook on the fire.
They do. They've been very accommodating. This would be one would be downstairs on the main level, for the almshouse. And then the other one would be upstairs on the top level for Cane House. So they could have a proper area to cook their meals, that would be safe and that the fire department would approve of. Children in motion, the roof issue that we have there, again, we're back to drainage. The water pools up, goes into the back and then starts rotting out the stairs, rots out doors, it rots out the steps. It creates mold and mildew issues on the dark side of the building. George, one of our maintenance guys, has been out there for about 2 weeks now, scraping and painting the outside of the building. So I took that sort of thing off of here, but mitigating that water damage it's not critical, but it's something that we'd like to do is to get that water away from there and hopefully stop some of the damage. Mini splits, 3 air conditioners for that building. Right now, they're using residential window units. At one time in the past, somebody cut square holes in the wall. Again, they're not proper for that type of facility. They harbor mold, there's all sorts of nasty things in there, so.
And that addition on that building was initially the dining room for the arms house. My first kind of delegation meeting was in the dining room.
Oh, really?
For the old, the old house. Old house. Then we converted it to a laundry, and then we converted it to a daycare.
Right.
So that section of it, it's a cinder block building. It was put up cheap, and hallelujah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. We're doing a pretty good job maintaining it.
But there's no light. I don't know, you know, back there.
Yeah.
There's no air that circulates around those windows.
Yep.
They're all caught within the U-shaped construction of the building.
Sure. We're on a preventive maintenance schedule just as a courtesy for them to take those air conditioners out once a month and washing the bottom of them out. You know, just because it's got an old factory in there, actually. It's pretty old and mildew.
Well, it doesn't get any sunlight, either.
Right. Going on to the Hyder House. Paving, we'll have a number on that hopefully soon. This issue, the second one, Wander Guard and keypad access, that was addressed, I believe, in the past, so I just reused the quote there.
What it is, and I can add a little bit to this, is that we've been hesitant or actually refused admission to, but it's mostly respite people who would come to Hyder who tended to wander, because as you know, most of the rooms have exit doors, to the outside, right built into the rooms of Hyder. And when you have someone who is on hospice, so they are, 6 months or less, but they're for respite, we really can't take them because we can't ensure that they're not going to wander out the doors. So what we are looking to do is put a Wander Guard system like we have at Riverside. Obviously a newer version of it, because the one at Riverside is pretty old, but we're looking at doing that,
Yeah, that would be at any entrance or exit to the building.
which would include the doors in the room.
Well, you're gonna have a security issue there. It's no different than anything else.
It's a little bit better, because it's recognized as a hospice house, we do have a push button system that signals the nurse's station, and you have to identify who you are in order to get in, and your purpose for being there. Now, nobody, somebody could lie about who they were and why they were there, but at least it's the initial step towards some enhanced security there, because we have had problems there in the past. Because the visiting, technically, we can't limit visiting hours anywhere. We have encouraged hours of visits for the dignity of the residents, but it's not mandatory. We certainly have people that stay overnight in both places. It's easier to stay overnight at Hyder. They could call.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, Jack.
No worries. Ice shields and exterior piping, we have had damaged air conditioning units in the past from ice falling off the roof. Hyder has some advanced hidden gutters, which work great for the rain. Unfortunately, they do nothing for the sliding snow and ice. So what happens is the piping going to the air conditioner gets damaged, and then we turn the air conditioner on in the spring and the gas is gone, and that's a service call. Sometimes a couple $100, sometimes maybe $1,000 if they have to replace a piece of copper piping on that. So that 3,300 will install ice shields on the roof, and that we're going to fabricate some covers for the pipes, maybe out of Trex or something similar, just to keep them from being damaged by the sliding ice. Reverse and dryer, they have a commercial Speed Queen right now for a washer, and they have a residential GE dryer. The GE dryer is knocking and making all sorts of noise and keeping residents up. They really should have something equivalent. The washer that they have is a 30-pound washer, and the dryer, the residential, I think, is a 15-pound dryer. So they actually, if they do a full load of laundry, they have to dry it twice to get that taken care of. So got a quote from Yankee, I believe, in Barrington on a reversing dryer for them. And that would be a natural gas unit. Right now, they have an electric dryer, so the residential one. Roof replacement. That's the original roof from 2007. We're starting to lose shingles. You can see it from the intersection. We're replacing them as fast as we can, but even getting up there is precarious because those shingles are starting to become loose, and even trying to get traction up there is questionable at times. So that was a quote that we got from, the name escapes me, from the roofing company, but it's in the packet, of 160. So that's probably the highest priority over there right now, is getting that roof taken care of. We're starting to see moisture issues on the inside of the roof. We're starting to see penetration. Some roof joists are starting to get wet. And again, we're flex sealing and replacing shingles as fast as we can, but it's going to need an overall roof here pretty soon. Original one's from 2007, I believe. So that's what I have for a list there, and my thoughts on the priorities.
Just one thing with that, Chairman, anything that is Riverside or Hyder House related is all reimbursable by Medicaid.
Yeah.
We went over that last meeting. It's reimbursable, like IRS depreciation reimbursable, and Diane can explain that better than I. But basically, because we self-generate our cost report for Riverside, we're fortunate. One of the handfuls of places that has somebody as talented to be able to do our own cost report rather than have it sent out to an accountant to do. Diane can fortunately do our cost report. So anything that is related to Riverside or Hyder, because Hyder is considered part of Riverside, is all reimbursable under our cost report. And in fact, people will ask me, why is our reimbursement rate lower than other county homes? And one of the reasons is we have no capital. You know, all our buildings are fully depreciated, everything. There is a small amount of capital that we depreciate every year, but it's could be $10 or $15 less than, you know, some other nursing home who has new, you know, because they're depreciating the building. So.
Okay, well, thank you, Doug. That was very complete. And
Thank you.
comprehensive.
Thanks. Good job.
Now, Mr. Chairman, you know, my goal now would be to reach out to the subcommittees that are involved. So we'd split this. I'd ask that some of them are obvious. I mean, if it's the sheriff, it's going to be a criminal justice subcommittee. If it's Riverside, it's going to be. But I'd ask that Doug, you know, work with Janet to split up the numbers into the respective subcommittees. And then we meet with the subcommittees who would make a recommendation to the executive committee who would we then call back the full delegation. And obviously based on the necessity for some of these things, we'd be looking at doing that promptly.
All right, great job, Dan. When we get the quote on the pavement, did you mention about that road, the driveway circle?
That's gonna be included.
Okay. That's included.
Yeah, and I have a couple new quotes from the compilation from moving everything into projects. I do have a couple of the capital improvement sheets that I need to rewrite. I'm working with Janet on that because they're in some sort of digital purgatory, some sort of email fortress that I can't get them out of. I get to her, so I have to put them on a thumb drive and bring them over, so we print them out.
Okay. So you guys good with anything else you wanted to take over? We need to be putting in or not? Yeah, you did a great job. I know it took some time to put that together. Thank you. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, we'll get it
But
done.
that's the big, that's the major portion of the facility.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, and I pushed and pushed department heads to work with Doug and work themselves to create a.
Well,
It's hard to sometimes to think about 6 years.
6 years out. I'm gonna suggest and recommend before we move to delegation that there's a contingency fund put in the capital plan for unforeseen circumstances that we wouldn't expend until we get permission from the executive committee, because there's just a lot of stuff going on here, and it would make sense for us to do that. As part of this project, because things happen, I'll tell you, we have unexpected things that take place, and the infrastructure around here is getting old. That's just the way it is. It's the nature of the beast.
If I could just add, we're fortunate to have a really dedicated maintenance crew that whatever I ask them to do or whatever they're asked to do by the residents, they just do. No complaint, and they're skilled and they're dedicated. And I'm thankful for them every day and thankful that that Administrator Bauer supports them and gives us the tools that we need to keep these places open and running and keep a couple hundred of the county's most vulnerable residents safe. I'm very proud of them for that.
Well, we've always had a decent maintenance crew, there's no question.
I think this is the best crew we've ever had, though, honestly. I know, I've been around certainly longer than Dougie and this Doug's been able to hire in a hiring what could be considering a hiring drought. He's been able to hire and keep a full crew with talented people and their companionship with the residents is obviously key because of the floor guy. That's not meant as a derogatory term.
Oh, he's the face of maintenance.
He's the face of maintenance.
Whoever it
The floor
is.
guy is the one that goes to, as something as simple as replacing the batteries in a resident's TV changer to,
Sure. I'm still the floor guy because there are particular residents that want me to fix things.
Yeah. That's just the way it goes.
So we've had some great staff over the years, George, Dave, Jimmy, I've got dozens of like all great people. And they did a super job, and they're all dedicated to the facility.
Well, if anybody has any
All right.
questions, they can get a hold of me.
Okay. All right, Paul.
Thank you.
So just keep working with Janet so we can then make sure we got the right subcommittee.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Because it'll involve several subcommittees.
Yeah. All righty, item A, update on the water.
We've come to an agreement. They're gonna forgive the interest considering they never told us about it.
The city is okay.
Yeah, the city's forgiven the interest and they're gonna work out payment plans. We've got an email confirming.
Okay, so the payment plan being worked over the meet, March 10th, they're off.
Yeah, and
City's agreeing with that, or we're gonna?
yeah, so no, we've got emails confirming everything all the way around. Janet's done a really good job of it, confirming that and the interest actually ended up being some amount of money. Yeah, so Yeah.
That's doable.
Well, if they would have let us know about it,
Well, we got on them earlier.
well, I mean, and then all of a sudden it's over and they say, oh, you're the owner, you're responsible. Well, it would have been nice if they told us 2 years ago when these people weren't paying the bill, but I guess we didn't have to push too hard. They could just right away.
They do have my email. Invoice copy as well as.
Yes, to
the
them.
physical one.
Right.
Yes. So that people just-
Item 9, what's this about? What's going on with that?
I just wanted to let you know so that you weren't freaked out one morning when you saw my face on television. Um, as you know, the legislature this year was kind enough to appropriate an extra amount of money for nursing home compensation, in other words, enhanced Medicaid. When DHHS, when it translated to actual rates, it was less than half of what the legislature appropriated. So the average reimbursement increase
Okay.
was only about a little over 2%, 2.9%, so it's more than a little over. The Healthcare Association, which represents pretty much all the county nursing homes, appeared on Fred Cloker's. He does a piece on, I think it's Channel 9. And they appeared, and then the producers decided that they were looking for a county perspective. So Craig and I are, Craig Labor and I are doing it. I was volunteered to do it. Yeah, because I have a history.
Right.
And actually no one else, including the Healthcare Association, has a history because of your involvement in, rate setting at the beginning. And, me just learning from what you did. So I can give them, a 35-year history of rate setting. So, and I've spoken to Brandon Williams from the Healthcare Association, just because I'm trying to get, his perspective on things. And next
Thursday. I got
Thursday,
to roll that into rates next year, but the state law requires.
well, they met the state law barely, but that wasn't what the legislature had appropriated. They appropriated quite a bit more. So next Thursday, I asked for a meeting of, the county Zoom meeting of the 11 county nursing home administrators. And just to be sure, I have all their perspective also. So that Craig Labor and I can, one side of the state to the other. Craig Labor and I can, speak and speak for the group.
But, I think last Diane, there was supposed to be a call with this new the federal grant we got from the solar issue.
We were both on that.
On the phone
Okay,
yesterday afternoon.
Okay, what's the status? What's going on
Well, we talked about, we talked about some of the documents that they had. They wanted to know more about the project we were proposing.
I'll be honest with you, Mr. Chairman, we didn't really have a firm project proposal for sure.
Right.
So what we're asking them for is technical assistance. And we get 8 hours of, what do they call it? Scoping.
For
So
free.
For free.
So it doesn't go against the $77,000 in technical assistance. They want to understand what we're.
Right.
Well, they want to understand what assets are available. So like yesterday, we talked about getting them a copy of the bill that the governor signed. And it's funny, while we were talking, Jim Monahan just called me to give me that information. They were talking about providing them a copy of our energy bills, which is easy because we can just reach out to USource, who does our bidding and get that information for them. And when we had some, energy work done a few years ago, they want a copy of that report, so I told them that within the next day or so, we'd provide them that information, and that would, and then we'd have another scoping meeting, I gave them the rundown of the natural gas and the methane that, we couldn't get because of UNH using all the methane, and I talked to him about the study we had done a whole bunch of years ago about wind power and how that wasn't effective, and a whole variety of things.
Okay.
Just to give him some background.
Well, I'm getting, just one of my colleagues, I've gotten like 5 or 6 calls. They're monitoring. The private sector monitors these things that go on in the federal government. So I got Revision Energy and all these solar companies are contacting me because they want to know what's going to happen, not happen. I told them about the consultant that the feds hired at no cost to us. So I want to be able to push these requests for information either to the consultant or something, because they're asking me, it does,
I think the safe thing to let them know is that we're pretty much the infancy of the, again, what they call scope. There was about 20 people on the call.
But it was mostly for Strafford County, the call was about Strafford.
All about
County.
Strafford County, but there's about.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They got all these.
From whatever company that the federal government hired.
National Energy Laboratory.
Laboratory, yeah, right. National.
The lead gentleman was from Fairbanks, Alaska.
Yeah, but the laboratory is located in Colorado.
Yeah, and so we had a couple of people from Colorado, we had some people from Missouri on the phone, and a little bit everywhere. So right now, they're just trying to find out what resources we have available and establish a baseline. So we're gonna provide them those documents.
Also, they're going to send us a bunch of resources to look through, materials that we can read through to help us as well. So, there'll be homework on our end.
What the frustrating part about this is, we were approved for this grant in April.
Yeah, they take all this time.
And so finally, I got something from Department of Energy that talks about subsequent rounds of grants. And pretty much to qualify for the subsequent rounds of grants, the initial grant needs to be done. And we couldn't do anything because it's not, it's somebody they provide to us. So, I wrote a kind of, not a nasty email, but a pointed email saying, hey, it's been since April, this is like the 3rd time we've reached out to you. And then within 3 days, we had somebody appointed to, this company was appointed to
The cart
represent
came
us.
before the horse.
So, but they have agreed to help us. Once they figure out what our needs are and the best way to satisfy those needs, they have agreed to help steer us to the appropriate subsequent grants. A lot of which became available under the Biden administration.
The other part about that too is that, the tax incentives they've given the private sector were huge, and now they kind of tapered back some of that.
Well, but now they're offering
money to governments.
to governments.
To be able to do it. So that's why we need a consultant. Without this.
One other thing, if I could bring up under old business, and I'm sorry, we had old business.
Yeah, we are at this point.
Well, is the frustration, this is old, is the frustration of this problem we've been having with the city of Rochester.
Oh, yeah.
And we sent a letter to the delegation advising them that the city of Rochester was, in the opinion of our register of deeds and all the other registrars of deeds, was not complying with the statute for the filing of certain pieces of information. So we denied some filings, and the city of the city attorney in Rochester decided to sue us in Superior Court. The frustrating part about that is, we had to hire an attorney and pay for that attorney to represent us. Now, we've won that case. And the city of Rochester applied for reconsideration and we've won that. The threat now is that Rochester intends on taking this to the Supreme Court. Now, I don't, right now it's a threat.
He'll do it.
I have CC'd every single email to the mayor so that he's well aware of these threats. We obviously, if that occurs, we'd be seeking legal fees, to reimburse us. But I just wanted to let you know that even though we won the case.
We won the case.
And then won the reconsideration.
Yeah.
Of the case.
Do you mind me asking what these funds were?
Sure.
This is one case that I don't know about.
It's actually a really simple
So
thing.
ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
It's
You're
beyond.
gonna think I'm crazy.
No.
It's simply including where the property is located. So sometimes,
Is this like with the deed?
in the deeds that are filed.
Deeds
That's
and
all.
easements.
Deeds and easements. So sometimes Rochester will have an easement, that'll involve a neighboring town.
Yeah.
And all the registrar of deeds is asking for is that one word. What's the name of that town? And no, that's
No,
this
it's
whole
probably
thing.
over $20,000 and the clock's ticking. I met with the city manager. It took 4 hours of my life
You're never gonna get back.
that I'm never gonna get back, trying to negotiate, to try to get the city manager to agree to
Just
have
to
it.
drop this
Just to
thing.
drop the thing,
'Cause
because
it's-
it was so ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous, because the easement,
I'm gonna write
it's in the town of Barry.
I'll write you all the
And all he had to do was write this easement, which is located in the town of Barrington.
That's it.
All I had to do. That was it. And he said, I'm not doing it, I'm gonna fight it. I'm going, oh my God, okay. And the city manager would not intervene. And, so there you go.
And I
That's all I asked
haven't,
for.
I have been forwarding these emails
Three
from
words.
there, so.
And I tried to save the taxpayers a lot of money on both ends, not only the Rochester taxpayer,
Right.
but the county taxpayer. And but nobody gets.
So I simply wanted to let you know that although we would think that this was a dead issue, apparently, we've received information, not directly from the attorney, but from whoever works for whoever his assistant is, that he's not letting it drop.
So, who is this?
Terrence O'Rourke.
You're right, it's Terrence O'Rourke. I would have said the name. It's Terrence O'Rourke, the city attorney in Rochester. And I'll be happy to share the email.
I would love it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
happy to do that.
Can I submit a bill for my time?
No, sorry, it doesn't work that way, boss.
Well, just while we're on this, do we know an approximate figure of how much? this costs?
Well, right now, I can only tell you the first bill, which was the hearing,
Yeah.
was just over $11,000.
And there'll be.
Well, there's a subsequent bill that I don't have yet for whatever it cost us on the reconsideration.
Consideration.
And if it goes to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Who knows?
No.
Yeah, I don't know what the reconsideration wasn't a hearing, but it had to be answered. So there would be work that was done. I haven't gotten a bill for that yet.
What was the reason that he gave?
He didn't feel he wasn't required by statute.
Nothing required by the law, which is not accurate, at least. The courts.
Well, we had all the registered deeds there to testify from all the other 9 counties, all who interpret, and as you know, our registered deeds is an attorney. And we have, she's not practicing obviously because she's a registered deeds, but
That knowledge is very critical in my work.
and it's got to be done the right way. So, they feel very strongly about that, and the indication was all the other registered deeds showed up to show support in the court. So,
And all we asked for was 3 words. He's been located in town back.
Yeah.
No, can't do that.
It's not located in the,
2 minutes more than three.
Well, they had the easement, an easement, yeah, an easement, in favor of the city of Rochester, but it didn't say where it was.
Yeah.
Should have said it was that.
That's all this is
Or
about.
in Barrington would have been two words. Well, you just said Barrington. It was, you know, it was just, it was beyond. But there you go, that's what happens.
I'll provide you a copy of that bill too. The actual.
Yeah, I'll show you the legal bill, because you can look the case up.
Diane will pull the bill, the actual bill.
And the reason why it wasn't on our agenda, because it was a legal issue and because we were in,
But now that it's adjudicated.
now it's adjudicated, so now we can talk.
Now we can talk
Well, any other old and new business?
about it.
Yeah.
I don't have anything. Oh, well, other than to say we're clear of COVID. And we had no one who really suffered any ill effects. Nobody went to the hospital. It was fairly clear to me that I thought at first it was the flirt variant, which is one of the later variants, but it seems the more reading I do about the flirt variant is that the flirt variant tends to be a little more harmful. And I reached out to every place I could think of to try and test for the variant. You know, back when COVID was very active, you could get the state or even private labs to test as to what variant you had. You know, I guess they can test whether it's COVID or not, but they can't test the variant. So because I was at the beginning, it might have mattered in the method of treatment. And I wanted to be armed with that information, but fortunately, all the residents are clear, all the staff's clear. So we're all set. And we're beyond the 10 days. So in order for the state to say you're cleared, you have to be cleared plus 10 days.
Well, this is.
And it never left never left one unit. That's and stayed on one.
Imagine all that heat in that building, those staff having to wear those masks all that time, gowns.
Most units get masks and gowns.
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought I'd close that subject.
Yeah. We got the temperature. We still get the.
We're monitoring that.
All right, any old business, new business? No? Okay. Questions, and comments from the public related to the agenda? You guys got anything for us?
Okay, a couple of months ago, we, bought some new autos for the sheriff's department, and we're gonna take some autos out of commission. And those are gonna go off to an auction, and I was just kind of curious if that has happened, and if so, what was the amount?
I heard it just as I was about to go into the restroom. Yes, we have titles and keys for 8 vehicles that we are going out. We're just about to go out. But we have,
You want to bid on one?
Absolutely not.
we have titles, mileage, and they're available for inspection. And it'll be in the paper within the next week. That's our process. Yeah, it's actually the process that's called for by statute.
What?
In my family, we call that junk, J-U-N-K. Then there is J-U-N-Q-U-E, and then there's the good stuff, and I don't need any of the 3 things there. So in discussing some of this nursing home stuff, a few years ago, I had an opportunity to participate in a process through Maine Technical Institute, which was a lot of developing new product and new things. And one of the guys that was in there was very interesting. He was developing for nursing homes a system, because apparently falls are a big issue as you get older and in the nursing homes. And he was developing some technology that could like give you warning indications of somebody getting out of bed. And it could alert somebody so that they could keep it.
We have a.
Do we have that
We have that
system here?
Yeah,
I don't know. I come
Yeah.
here so that I can learn.
sure, yeah, we have that system.
And so I was
Probably
just
should be
kind of
upgraded,
curious,
just slowly.
you know, about that, especially where we have one whole floor that's dementia, and you were saying that that's becoming more and more the norm in our society. And I know that falls are a big.
80% of the people that come here through fall. At home, 80%. And one of the things that we're really gonna have to look at in the future is, I talked about it a lot, talked about it in the counties as a PACE program where we do assessments and we do home assessments on folks. Especially those who are more vulnerable in our population, because, and Medicare will pay for this. Because when those folks fall, and they go to the hospital and they get a hip replacement, knee, shoulder, broke, all this stuff. The average cost to Medicare is almost $300,000. So if you could go out in those homes and you do home assessments and you get rid of the trip and fall issues that they have, like scatter rugs, I guess a quick example, that causes a lot of them. You just go in the homes and you take those things out and you install handicap bars and ramps. Medicare will pay for all that because it's cheaper for Medicare. Because they have to pay for, that they pay the trip and fall, especially if you're over the age of 65. The medical expenses in the hospitals, are in the 6-digit figures. So if you spend $2,000 or $3,000, $4,000 preventative measures in people's homes, you wouldn't have the demand nursing home placement. So much demand for medical costs. And that's a program that we're gonna have to really look at down the road with baby boom generation. Because we just can't build enough nursing home space. So, but 80% of the company trips, we do have that monitoring capability.
And I don't know if it's advanced to the point where there was discussion today about people, because of the number of exits we have, people wandering off. If that same technology could be implemented.
We have.
So that when they do wander off.
The doors are secure. Okay, you have secure systems on all the doors off the units. We put them in the last few years, right? Well, actually, we started about 5 years, 6 years, probably even a little earlier than that. So the actual doors are in and out of the units are secured. You have to have a bunch of key codes to be able to get in and out. But on occasion, somebody will.
Dr. Once this year.
Yeah, doesn't happen a lot. So I don't think.
What we have done with those people is, with the permission of their guardian or something, we will sew in one of those, one of those tags that you can get. Yeah, we sew them in their shoes.
Yeah.
They're not actually very expensive. And we can actually track them on our phones. So right now we have, actually just one resident, that is, we have sewn in his shoes. And he only has 2 pairs of shoes, so it makes it easier for us. We only need two. Yeah, but we do keep a spare, in case we need it, because it takes a day or so to get it from our vendor. And then we have, our seamstress is very clever about sewing it in a way that's not really.
It's not noticeable, and it's not intrusive.
Well, and it's not embarrassing to the resident either, so if they would know it. So that's been a big help to us. So we actually, we can track. He wanted to see his sister at Exeter. Hadn't seen her in 50 years. But, he didn't quite know how to get to Exeter. So he is a little confused, but it certainly is something it's a nursing home administrator's biggest nightmare. is the possibility of resident wandering.
Okay,
My final question, which I ask every meeting. Will the three of you consider holding a delegation meeting for the next meeting? Yes or no? Don't need-
I told you this, Susan, 10 times,
I told you I was gonna keep asking.
and I'm gonna keep giving you the answer is the same, it's not changed.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things, this sewer problem, where George, you gotta know, this could be opening up a can of worms, especially when you don't know what you're getting into. If this is city sewage here, I believe it is, maybe the city of Dover, maybe something was submitted to them with the permits or the approval of the nursing home. Or maybe the city, it's worth a check to ask, unless you've already done it.
Let me say this. When those nursing homes were built, we were not tied to the city of Dover sewer system, we had our own sewer system.
You do.
We had a lagoon system. Okay, and in the early nineties, when I was mayor of Dover, we negotiated a deal with the city of Dover to eliminate the lagoon system. Way after those buildings were built, all those buildings dumped in the lagoon system, they had like Rochester had, out behind the nursing home. And so there was no requirements of the city of Dover to submit any of those plans to the city of Dover. The county was exempt from that. Okay, because we're a separate government. Some will argue that we're up the food chain a little bit. Back then, the only inspection processes that were required back then was a state inspector, which worked part-time when they constructed buildings. So, I mean, it's like asking the Wright brothers for their pilot licenses, okay? It just didn't exist back then.
But the problem I'm getting at is when you get into something, you don't know what you're getting into.
Oh, well, there's no question
Always
about
a
that.
problem, and I'll give you just an example,
I
it's
would
not
agree
the
with that.
same. That there's, all the restoration shop I worked at, when a car would come in, somebody started, didn't finish it, it was painted. And it looked nice,
Right.
we wouldn't warranty it unless we took that down to bare metal to see what they had done.
Yeah.
And that's a tremendous expense, and it just, common sense will tell you what we can find to reduce those pipes to. In the Riverside restaurant, where people can throw anything in the toilet and flush it. You know, you might as well have a rotor man full time right there waiting, because that ain't,
I
you
don't
know,
think,
it's
I
just
don't,
so inadequate what you're proposing, in my
I don't,
opinion.
I don't think they're not, well, I'm not proposing it. That department head
Yeah.
that made a request to us, I don't think it's enough money myself,
No, I don't either,
okay, but.
and I think it should be done right.
Well, if we gotta jackhammer the floors up, we'll just add some more money, this is the purpose of that.
You'll have to do
Why I wanted- it's why I wanted the contingency, but I don't think the $90,000 is enough money.
Yeah.
That's just me,
Yeah,
but I'm not a sewer expert, although I've had a lot of sewer problems in the last.
I know when
6
they don't
months.
work, it's a big problem for everybody. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that.
I had a building fill, one of my buildings fill up with 3 feet of sewer this
Yeah.
past week, so
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about sewer issues. And since I have a sewer pump station in my backyard that services a third of the city, they came to clean the wet well 2 weeks ago in the pump station, and the truck was a private contractor, and the truck came. They went in to clean the wet well, which I told you services a third of the city of Dover. So that wet well's deep, it's 60 feet deep. It's got a lot of crap in there. So they're down in there sucking the wet well. And while they do it, the truck's out in my parking lot, and the hatch on the back of the truck, the high pressure hatch blew off, and they pumped about 15,000 gallons of sewage into my building, okay, and covered my entire shop with sewage because they didn't know that they were all down the wet well, hear it. So then it all just ran around and all DES and.
So instead of going to the Kachiko, when they.
No, I went into the Kachiko, well, eventually got into the Kachiko, because it went into the storm drain, eventually build up. But I got a lot of sewer problems. Then I had a building, one of my buildings last week, because of sewer problem, got 3 feet of surge in it. So I haven't been in the building in about a week, and 3 feet of surge sitting in that building.
Again, my concern is,
there's not enough money in there. That $90,000 not enough money to treat that problem.
It's gotta be fixed right. You gotta find out what's in there. You don't know.
Well, they know, I mean, they cambered it, but.
That's probably why nobody really wants to do it, you know?
Probably got a jackhammer before. We've had this problem before.
Yeah.
The city of Dover also wanted us, and I gotta get this in the plan too. City of Dover wanted us to, deal with our water line issues. That's why I asked a question about the backflow preventers. That's some of that infrastructure, the water infrastructure that was put in 1880. It's old. The lines at the vertical look down. We had chase problems in building B. We spent, I don't know, like $30,000 a few years ago trying to fix the water line coming out of building in the wintertime. But I'll talk with Doug about that. We're gonna put some money in the deal with the water line issue. And I would agree 100%, that's $90,000 for that street. You know, it's gonna be a Band-Aid, if you know, Jack.
Yeah.
Look,
It's obvious.
you know, but all back then, just to let you know, it all went to lagoon. It all went to lagoons. We didn't have this, the city of Dover wasn't involved.
The other thing, today, there was a lot of mention about packets. You got it in the packet. Is there any way to make that packet, those packets available online, or are they already online?
Which package not?
The maintenance guy was talking, there's a packet that it's in your packet, you'll see that.
We'll put it online.
If you could, it's helpful in Rochester, they do it with the county, when they send the meeting, the agenda, they put the packets too that are included.
We'll put this stuff online for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Everything that Doug covered, all his backup, everything, put it all online.
Well, there's a bunch of changes to it, right?
Just give us
Yeah.
Could you give us a few days so we have the most up-to-date stuff?
Yeah, I'm not gonna pressure you at all, it'd be great if you could do it when you can do
I
it.
give you a copy of this right here.
Plumbing thing,
You want the
yeah.
plumbing? Yeah, have it right here, yeah. Take a read.
Electronically, it's easier.
Okay.
All right, we'll send it to you electronic.
It'll have to go online, download it, because it's too big to send over.
Yeah,
right.
We'll
Have
put
to
it on the
scan,
website.
then we scan.
And the website's a lot better.
We'll put it on the website.
It's just these files, we're finding out that if I try to email it to IT,
I
he
can think
doesn't
of,
receive it, I don't receive them from Doug, we actually have to physically bring flash drives.
this is something we're gonna have to talk about. The city of Dover, in the city of Dover, the city of Dover doesn't operate like Raleigh, the city of Rochester. The city of Dover, there's a packet like this, okay, it's 100 pages. The city of Dover will not put that on the website. The city of Dover will say, this is the report, you're welcome to come down and view it, or ask for a copy of it, because we don't have a ton of staff here. So
Yeah, I
for
get
somebody to sit there and scan all this and then it takes a lot of time. So I think we need to talk about the policy regarding how we're gonna handle
Yeah,
it.
I don't,
You know, but it's electronic somewhere, he didn't just write it all down, he's got it on his computer and, you know, a little
Right,
communication.
it's easier to scan it once and then you don't have to make copies and stuff.
Right.
So
Okay.
scanning
Yeah.
that, it
Okay.
takes like 30 seconds.
But it had to come electronically to get to the
Right,
paper.
right. Right.
So if you took it first,
Delivered to
Company,
Oh,
because we can't, are you talking about, I'm sorry, that means interrupt, the big report from the company that was like
Yeah.
52 pages, yeah, I
Well,
can understand something like that.
it's more than 30 pages, it's,
Or whatever it was, I don't know.
yeah.
that's the plumbing one.
Yeah.
The sewer line. I mean, that's.
He emailed it to me, and I never received it, we're on the same email system, so.
But I have a copy here at work, very, almost
From the
identical to yours,
scan?
and you can, it scans it like in 30 seconds. something
Which
like
I
that.
just did this
Yeah,
morning.
yeah.
I thought,
Right,
geez.
yeah.
Well, we'll scan it all, and put it.
I'd love to have, is it okay if I have a copy?
Thank you so much. All right, so let's get a motion, I guess we'll have several public, right? Yeah, no, motion to move non-public for personnel.
Second.
Yes. Okay, it's the second. Commissioner Rollo?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Okay.